Welcome back. We're so thrilled you could join us today for this custom-tailored deep dive.
Yeah, really glad to have you here.
We have a truly massive and honestly fascinating stack of sources to go through with you today. We're exploring a topic that, well, feels like it's pulled straight out of a near-future sci-fi thriller, but it is actually unfolding right now. It's completely reshaping the reality of global security.
Absolutely.
But before we jump into the thick of it, a quick thank you to www.breach.company for supporting this deep dive and, helping us keep you informed.
Today, we are looking at the radical evolution of Ukraine's cyber capabilities.
Right. We're tracing a timeline from the initial digital skirmishes way back in 2014 all the way to some major groundbreaking development that just surfaced in late 2025.
And our core sources for this are a highly comprehensive November 2025 report from Orange Cyber Defense's CERT.
That's their computer emergency response team, for those wondering.
Exactly. Along with a supplementary set of intelligence notes that really drill down into the private sector's involvement and some frankly unprecedented alliances with civilian hacktivist groups.
Now, before we jump in, a quick but very important note to you, our listener. We are discussing an active, highly sensitive geopolitical conflict today. Our goal here is absolutely not to take sides or endorse the political viewpoints of the actors involved.
Yeah, that's crucial to state up front.
We are simply acting as impartial guides. We're just here to convey the data, the strategies, and the ideas contained within these specific intelligence sources.
Right, just looking at the facts on the ground.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to explore how a nation under severe physical and digital siege managed to build a revolutionary cyber defense ecosystem. They didn't just defend themselves. The data suggests they essentially pioneered a completely new model of hybrid warfare.
They really did.
And we are going to break down exactly why this matters to your understanding of modern security, whether you are a high-level IT professional or just someone who, relies on a smartphone to get through the day.
Which is pretty much all of us at this point.
Yeah. But to really grasp the magnitude of what these sources detail, we first need to define the battlefield. So how do these intelligence reports define hybrid warfare in this context?
It is the foundational question, really. The report relies heavily on the NATO framework, which describes hybrid threats as the coordinated use of conventional and unconventional methods, both overt and covert.
So blending the lines.
Exactly. In practice, this means fusing the digital, the informational, and the conventional physical domains into one massive overlapping battle space. The goal of a cyber attack in this framework isn't just to destroy a server or steal a file.
Right. It's bigger than that.
Much bigger. It is specifically calculated to exploit societal vulnerabilities, erode public trust, and basically fracture a nation's social cohesion. And what the documents show is that Ukraine has essentially been the world's primary testing ground for this specific kind of warfare since 2014, right following the Euromaidan uprising.
Yeah, the sources mentioned we saw early, highly complex malware deployments back then, like Ouroboros.
Yes.
For those who might not know, Ouroboros was this incredibly stealthy, snake-like spyware designed to quietly siphon off massive amounts of data from government networks over really long periods.
And we also saw early campaigns directly targeting their power grid back then, too.
Right.
But the data shows that with the full-scale invasion in February 2022, this confrontation escalated massively. It pushed the conflict decisively into full-blown hybrid warfare on a scale the world had genuinely never seen before.
So looking at these sources, how do you even begin to pivot from just putting out fires to actually building a functional defense while you are actively under attack? What's their first major move to forge this shield?
Well, it required a total paradigm shift. The sources paint a picture of a country that had to aggressively transition from a reactive posture to a highly robust, institutionalized, multi-layered defense system.
It's like, think of their early defense strategy as trying to patch a leaking roof during a Category 5 hurricane.
Yeah.
You're just frantically plugging holes with whatever you have.
Exactly, just total survival mode.
Right.
But a massive milestone highlighted in the November 2025 report is the parliamentary approval of a dedicated Cyber Forces Command. This wasn't just a new IT department. This is a brand new military branch operating directly under the general staff and the president's authority.
So to use that analogy, it's like building a reinforced bunker, but doing it while the bombs are actively dropping.
That's a great way to put it. And its entire purpose is to institutionalize their offensive and defensive cyber warfare capacity and rigidly align it with NATO standards. That institutionalized bunker is what the Cyber Forces Command represents.
And you can really see why they needed that reinforced bunker when you look at the specific case studies detailed in the Orange Cyber Defense Report.
Hmm.
We are looking at calculated, devastating maneuvers against civilian infrastructure.
Absolutely. Let's take the attack on Kyivstar, which is Ukraine's leading telecommunications provider. The intelligence notes reveal that the adversary likely started by simply compromising a single employee account.
Just one account.
Just one. But from there, they managed to escalate their access to obtain admin privileges, eventually gaining control over the entire Active Directory.
Okay, for anyone listening who doesn't work in enterprise IT, let's break that down. What does getting control of the Active Directory actually mean in a practical sense?
That's a great question. Think of the Active Directory as the ultimate master key system, or the central phone book for a company's entire computer network. It dictates exactly who is allowed to log in, what computers they can access, and what permissions they have.
So, by taking over the Active Directory, the attackers essentially became the absolute masters of the network.
Exactly. This allowed them to launch malicious actions deep within the system, completely taking down the telecommunications network and even threatening the physical base transceiver stations.
Meaning the actual cell towers.
Right, the cell towers themselves, before a second wave of the attack was finally prevented.
That is terrifying. Just from one compromised employee account. And there's another major case study in the notes about the railway system, right? What happened there?
Yes, the massive attack on Ukrzaliznytsia, the state-owned railway company, in March 2025. This strike completely crippled their online ticketing and freight system.
Completely crippled it.
The result was that a massive, modern national transit system had to revert entirely to paper-based operations. Passengers were literally buying handwritten tickets on the train platforms. And the most staggering data point, it required an 89-hour continuous recovery effort just to restore the baseline online systems.
Right. 89 hours. That's almost 4 full days of a national transit system running on zero electronics.
4 days.
I can't even imagine the absolute chaos on those train platforms. And honestly, that perfectly illustrates why this matters to you, the listener. These weren't just standard data breaches where some passwords get leaked to the dark web.
Not at all.
As the sources point out, these attacks were highly calculated psychological and logistical operations. Imagine trying to evacuate your family from a dangerous area, and you literally cannot buy a train ticket, or you can't use your phone to coordinate with your relatives.
Public trust in the state's ability to function begins to evaporate. It cripples wartime logistics and creates sheer panic.
It's a stark reminder that modern infrastructure isn't just concrete and steel anymore. It's code. And securing that code is paramount. Speaking of protecting your digital life, we want to thank www.myprivacy.blog for helping keep our listeners secure from everyday digital vulnerabilities.
And that transition from discussing state-level infrastructure to the code that runs it is crucial. What the conflict in Ukraine demonstrated to the world is that defending against these massive hybrid threats required an ecosystem far larger than the state itself.
Right.
The Ukrainian government recognized very quickly that it couldn't survive in the digital domain on its own. The subsequent integration of allied nations and private for-profit corporations into a sovereign nation's defense architecture is frankly unprecedented in modern history.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the cavalry that arrived to help wasn't just other nation-states' militaries. We are talking about a massive global tech coalition. The sources detail something called the Tallinn Mechanism. Can you break down what that actually looked like?
The Tallinn Mechanism was formally launched in December 2023. It's a coalition of 11 countries, including places like Estonia, Canada, France, Germany, the UK, and the US, with NATO and the EU observing.
Wow, quite a lineup.
Yeah. And through this single coordinated mechanism, international donors raised over 241 million euros, specifically to fortify Ukraine's civilian cyber infrastructure.
That's a massive injection of funds.
It is. And on the military side of things, you had U.S. Cyber Command actively running what they call hunt-forward operations, literally deploying teams to identify malware on Ukrainian networks before it could detonate. Plus, the EU deploying cyber rapid response teams.
But the real mind-bender in these intelligence notes, at least for me, is the private sector involvement. Tech giants basically stepped up to become de facto defense partners for a nation at war.
It completely changed the game.
The notes mention that Microsoft and Amazon Web Services provided secure cloud services and actually migrated over 60 Ukrainian government agencies entirely into the cloud.
60 agencies.
And the reason why is wild. It was to prevent catastrophic data loss in case the physical on-premise servers were destroyed by kinetic missile strikes.
Just think about that for a second.
I know. Think about how much we panic if we lose access to our personal iCloud or Google Drive for an hour. Now imagine a whole government migrating 60 critical agencies to AWS just to ensure their country doesn't get digitally erased by a bomb. It puts our everyday tech reliance into a crazy perspective.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this level of corporate integration completely reshapes the global playbook for wartime cyber defense. It wasn't just cloud hosting. You had an industry-led volunteer network called the Cyber Defense Assistance Collaborative, or CDA.
Right, which included massive cybersecurity firms like Mandiant, Palo Alto Networks, and Symantec.
Exactly. They delivered over 35.5 million euros worth of advanced cybersecurity tools directly to Ukrainian entities. You had Google and Microsoft's threat intelligence centers providing near real-time intelligence to help Ukraine proactively neutralize Russian operations.
That's incredible.
The lines between civilian corporations and military operations were profoundly blurred here. When a private tech company is actively thwarting state-sponsored attacks and securing a government's data against physical bombing campaigns, that company is no longer just a software vendor.
They become an active, vital participant in national security.
Precisely.
It is a wild concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But as we continue reading through the intelligence notes, there is a very surprising plot twist to all of this.
Yeah, this part is sobering.
After more than 3 years of this incredible, unprecedented global tech coalition, the private sector support for Ukraine is actually declining. The notes highlight that this massive wave of corporate goodwill and pro bono defense is beginning to recede. Why is that happening now?
The intelligence notes synthesize 5 primary reasons for this waning tide of support. First, Ukraine's own digital resilience has massively improved. As their internal capabilities matured with the Cyber Forces Command we talked about, the immediate, desperate urgency for outside help naturally decreased.
That makes sense. They built the bunker.
Right. Second, the perceived impact of Russian cyber operations has diminished in the public eye. Because the defenses are holding better, it doesn't make the front pages as often, which lowers the apparent urgency for corporate intervention.
Out of sight, out of mind, essentially.
Precisely. Third, there is undeniable donor fatigue. Maintaining volunteer networks and providing pro bono, high-level enterprise services for over 3 years is incredibly draining for these organizations. It takes a toll on their own staff and resources.
I can imagine.
Fourth, there is a severe lack of dedicated long-term funding to sustain these massive systemic cybersecurity initiatives. They were built as emergency responses, not permanent budget line items.
Right.
And fifth, there have been significant coordination challenges. The notes specifically mention that volunteer networks like CDAC faced serious operational hurdles over time. Things like fragmented communication, vaguely defined requirements, and constrained staffing, which ultimately limited their long-term effectiveness.
So we really want you to consider the implications of this. What happens when a country relies heavily on the goodwill, the volunteer hours, and the free cloud services of private for-profit corporations for its national defense, and then that goodwill simply runs out?
It's a critical vulnerability.
It's a stark reminder that relying on temporary emergency fixes is not a sustainable long-term strategy, whether you are a nation-state trying to keep the lights on or a business trying to protect its data. And speaking of long-term enterprise security, we're proud to be sponsored by www.breached.company, who deeply understand that true resilience requires permanent, structured solutions, not just emergency patches.
The Ukrainian intelligence apparatus clearly understood this exact need for a permanent, structured approach, particularly as they saw that private support began to wane. They knew they had to evolve again.
Right, they couldn't just sit back.
And this leads us to the most radical shift detailed in the Orange Cyber Defense Report. They didn't just fortify their defenses, they fundamentally reorganized their offensive capabilities.
Yes, because eventually you have to hit back. The report details how the HUR, that's Ukraine's main directorate of intelligence, made a massive pivot. They aren't just defending their networks anymore, they are actively conducting covert cyber attacks.
But even more surprisingly, they are overtly collaborating with civilian hacktivists.
Which is nuts to think about. We are talking about state intelligence agencies officially teaming up with anonymous internet collectives to wage this new model of hybrid warfare.
It's totally unprecedented.
The sources profile 3 distinct pro-Ukrainian hacktivist groups, and the division of labor between them is just fascinating. Let's walk through them. First up, we have what I'd call the demolition crew, BO team. What is their specific angle?
BO Team's operational profile is highly aggressive. The source material indicates their strategy is entirely focused on destructive attacks aimed at infrastructure supporting Russia's military-industrial complex.
So they aren't sneaking around.
No, they are not looking to steal data or spy. They are looking to paralyze systems. For example, they struck regional internet service providers like Orion Telecom, causing severe internet blackouts, and they actively wiped crucial backups in Siberia.
And the notes mention that in June 2025, they were linked to a massive DNS layer strike that crippled the Russian railways' ticketing and logistics systems, which was a direct retaliatory hit on military supply chains.
Exactly.
Okay, pause. Just so we're all on the same page, what exactly is a DNS layer strike?
Simply put, DNS, the domain name system, is like the internet's address book. It translates a website name into the actual IP address of the server. A DNS layer strike attacks that address book.
So the servers are fine physically.
Right. The railway servers might still be physically running, but no one on the internet can find them or connect to them. It effectively erases them from the web.
Wow.
And to make matters worse, the technical forensic data shows BO Team regularly deploys a tool called S-Delete.
S-Delete, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a legitimate Windows utility, but they use it as a digital shredder to permanently erase host systems so the data cannot be recovered. And if that wasn't enough, they sometimes drop Babuk ransomware right at the end.
Jeez.
Babuk is a highly disruptive ransomware strain that encrypts whatever files are left, just to ensure that even if the victim manages to stop the wiping process, what remains is locked behind an unbreakable encryption key. It is designed to make recovery agonizingly slow and expensive.
Pure, unadulterated disruption. Okay, so that's the demolition crew. What about the second group in the notes? Cyber resistance. They sound like the spies of the operation.
That's exactly right. While BO Team is breaking things, cyber resistance is entirely focused on cyber espionage. They are the ones quietly sneaking into the communication systems of defense contractors and Kremlin-aligned institutions.
Fascinating.
A massive operation detailed in the report was their hack of the Albatross drone manufacturer. They managed to exfiltrate 100 gigabytes of technical documentation, internal correspondence, and actual UAV schematics.
And did they also successfully breach the personal mailbox of Yuri Pavlenko? He's the head of Military Representative Office Nun 243 of the Russian Ministry of Defense.
Yes, that was huge. That leaked highly sensitive intel on naval construction and procurement channels, giving Ukraine a direct inside look into the vulnerabilities of the Russian military-industrial complex.
Incredible. And then we have the third group, Keyborg. They seem completely different from the other two. What is their mission?
Keyborg is perhaps the most unique group described in the sources. If BO Team are the demolition crew and cyber resistance are the spies, Keyborg acts as the investigators.
The investigators.
Yeah. They actually trace their roots back to the 2014 physical defense of the Donetsk airport, where Ukrainian defenders were nicknamed cyborgs. Keyborg positions itself as a hybrid network of IT specialists and journalists.
So they have a totally different skill set.
Right. Their primary goal isn't just to hack. It's to combine stolen data with open source intelligence to meticulously document what they report as war crimes, collaborators, and disinformation networks.
And the sheer volume of their leaks is staggering. The notes say in March 2023, Keyborg leaked 500 gigabytes of data from Roskomnadzor, which is Russia's internet censorship authority, completely exposing their internal censorship directives.
They also leaked the personal data of over 600,000 Russian conscripts.
But the detail that really stops you in your tracks, the thing that goes way beyond standard hacking, is their humanitarian focus. According to the reporting, Keyborg has been actively tracking Ukrainian children who were abducted and deported to Russia.
That part of the report is incredibly heavy.
It is. They claim to have identified the whereabouts of at least 160 missing children. And crucially, they share this data not just with Ukrainian intelligence, but with international bodies like the International Criminal Court and the United Nations to directly aid in war crime investigations.
They also ran a project in July 2025 called Pirates of the Azov Sea, which systematically exposed exactly how stolen Ukrainian grain was being exported with the help of foreign intermediaries.
It's just wild how vast their scope is.
What's fascinating here is the brilliance and honestly the strategic danger of this state-hacktivist synergy. The documents reveal a highly pragmatic, calculated division of labor.
How so?
The state intelligence apparatus, the HUR, provides the strategic objectives, the timing, and likely the high-level intelligence targeting. The civilian hacktivists then execute the technically demanding intrusions.
So they feed them the targets.
Exactly. This gives the state agencies massively extended operational reach and, crucially, plausible deniability on the international stage.
Because they can say, hey, we didn't do it, a random internet group did.
Precisely. Meanwhile, the hacktivists gain access to state-level resources that maximize the damage and impact of their operations. It is a completely new frontier of warfare where anonymous citizens are carrying out state-directed strategic objectives.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at a country trying to patch a leaking roof in 2014, and we ended up with a state-sponsored hacker militia taking down international rail lines and exposing vast censorship networks in 2025. What is the ultimate takeaway from all these sources?
It means that the fundamental nature of national defense has changed permanently. The overarching theme synthesizing all these intelligence reports is that cybersecurity is no longer just the IT department's problem to solve in the basement.
Definitely not.
It is the absolute bedrock of national survival. And, more importantly, survival now requires a deeply interdependent web. The state cannot do it alone anymore.
It requires the financial and technical might of private global tech giants.
Yes, the coordinated, funded assistance of allied nations. And, as we've just seen, the agile, highly motivated capabilities of citizen hacktivists. This immense interdependence is the new global security paradigm.
And that paradigm trickles all the way down to you. The digital interdependence we are talking about applies to the cloud services you use for your family photos, the company that provides your home internet, and how private corporations handle your personal data.
It really connects everything.
Because as we saw with AWS and Microsoft, those same everyday companies are now playing active, decisive roles in global conflicts. It's a massive reality check on how connected we all really are. We want to thank www.myprivacy.blog once again for making this deep dive possible and helping you navigate this very interconnected and sometimes vulnerable digital world.
This raises an important question, though, and it's one I think everyone needs to consider after listening to this.
Okay, let's hear it.
If massive private tech companies and anonymous citizen hacktivists are now actively participating in state-level cyber warfare, what happens to the concept of neutrality in the next global conflict?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
If your cloud provider takes a side in a war, are your servers, your business's data suddenly a legitimate military target? It's a complex dilemma that policymakers, tech executives, and everyday citizens will have to grapple with in the years to come.
Wow, that is definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you some incredible new insights into the rapidly evolving world of cyber warfare, hybrid threats, and digital resilience. Keep questioning the digital world around you, stay safe, and we will catch you on the next one.